Mauritius, a jewel in the Indian Ocean. A beautiful island with a violent past. Around 12 million years ago, oceanic magma erupted from the sea floor, creating an undersea island. Over time, a barren volcanic island emerged above the sea. The wind and rain started eroding the rocks, and soil was created. Wind-blown seeds arrived on the virgin soil. The first plants became established. Trees and shrubs formed dense forests, evolving into new species, unique to the island. Assisted by storms and sea currents from the east, birds, bats, and reptiles colonized the island. Among the new arrivals, a pigeon from Southeast Asia. With no predators and with all its food on the forest floor, flight was no longer necessary. Over time, the wings got smaller and the bird got bigger. The dodo was born. The island's forest, rich in palms and ebony, was inhabited by giant tortoises, dodos, fruit bats, parrots, pigeons, red rails, and a host of other birds and reptiles. The forest relied on the animals to spread their seeds, and the animals relied on the forest for food and shelter. For millennia, they lived in peace and harmony. With the arrival of ships, however, this was to change drastically. In the 14th century, Arab traders chanced upon Mauritius, but did not settle. Black rats escaped from the ships and soon became established. It was 2 centuries before the next visitors arrived. The Portuguese landed in 1507 and named it Island of Swans, perhaps in reference to the dodo. Although they had no interest in the island, they introduced goats as a food source for future visiting ships, travelling on the spice route to the East Indies. In 1598, a Dutch fleet arrived at Vieux-Grand-Port, claimed the island for the Netherlands, naming it in honour of Prince Maurice. The forests were exploited for their valuable ebony, and sugarcane was planted as the forests were cleared. Cattle, pigs, and deer were introduced for food, monkeys arrived as pets, and cats were brought to control rats. In 1710, the Netherlands abandoned the island as it was too costly to maintain. 5 years later, the French settled and named the island Île-de-France. Roads were developed and the interior of the island was opened up to the harvest of ebonies and to increase sugarcane production. The first large towns were built, including the capital, Port Louis. In 1810, the British captured the island and renamed it Mauritius. Under British rule, sugarcane became a major industry, and almost all of the remaining native forest was cleared to make way for sugarcane cultivation and provide timber as fuel in the factories. Mauritius gained independence from Britain in 1968. The arrival of humans marked the end of much of the native biodiversity, which had evolved for millions of years in isolation. Unable to cope with the intense deforestation, overhunting, introduction of invasive species and disease, almost all of Mauritius's animals went extinct. The dodo, red rail, and a host of other birds disappeared during the Dutch occupation, whereas giant tortoises and most parrots and pigeons went extinct during the French period. Remarkably, some species managed to survive. The bats, pink pigeon, Mauritius kestrel, and echo parakeet sought refuge in the remnant mountain forests, along with smaller songbirds like the merle, fodey, cuckoo shrike, white-eyes, and flycatcher. The remaining reptiles survived on offshore islets such as Round Island. It may be too late for the dodo, but it doesn't have to be too late for the remaining animals and plants. Since the 1980s, many of the extinction processes have been reversed through conservation programs. Help us to continue to protect our native species, like the pink pigeon, Mauritius kestrel, and echo parakeet, and provide them with native forest in which to live and thrive.